Okay, that was just a huge waste of time. I just spent a bunches of time trying to get the live video on the YouTube to work on my computer, on this Acer computer. If it was HP or IBM or Intel, something, I'd be better than this. I'd be doing this live. But the problem is Facebook Live is only Facebook. I can't take the same video and plaster it all over the place. So it's not worth me doing live stream on Facebook for this. So I was trying to get it to do the YouTube thing. I've downloaded a program that's right, but it's not recognizing anything. So I've had to reboot and it's still not recognizing anything. So now I'm doing it this way. I'm just pre-recording and then uploading. This way there's no complication and it goes anywhere you want it to upload, and you can upload it whenever you want to. I wanted to say, maybe pause, Alex. Maybe pause sometimes is useful. Maybe that would work. Like when I go out live with Bobby, I can just pause and play all day long. Finding random people, maybe what I'll do. I'll find random people to use the camera so I can do lives with Bobby. As soon as the weather gets just a little bit nicer. Without further ado, the all-day video took me all day, and I didn't get to do live. Here, I might on Facebook, so anybody on my Facebook list can watch it. I don't know if it'll show outside because I have security measures in place, and I don't know how to readjust the security measures so that more stuff shows on that. That's what going to film school is for. That's what having assistant producer or executive producer or co-partners in this industry that know more than me or to help me with, or a boyfriend that would know more about this stuff than me. So anyways, I wanted to start before reading. This is my van. This is the Superwoman van. And the story to this van in my life, it's very sad. Now this poor van is all run down. It's stuck at the mechanics. It's been vandalized. I've had to pay to get it safety twice and run out of money, so it never finished being safety. So it's been sitting at the mechanics in Toronto ever since. Now the goal was to drive to Gene Hackman in that van and have a big, huge, what do you call it? Bullhorns or whatever from school. And you're playing the Superman music and getting his attention and, warming my way into his heart. That didn't go so well. I tried to leave twice, 2 different borders, and they thought I was Eminem's girlfriend because I was wearing brand new duds all decked out with Superman logos, and they all thought it was like rap or R&B or hip-hop or something like that. So they wouldn't let me cross until they found my resume for my security experience and all that other stuff. Then they apologized and said the next time you leave, we won't bother you. But now I'm over here because progress of other things I was doing brought me to this side, to Ontario, and to Ottawa to try to get help from the highest of highest. And I'm not going to go through the list of all the highest. I've contacted all of them, and I'm still sitting here making videos about all the years I've spent trying to leave Canada in my van with whatever money I have and whatever skills I've got to earn a living to get to Hollywood. I wasn't too worried about what would happen to me on the trip to Hollywood. I'm pretty sure by the time I got to Hollywood, I would have had a parking spot at Warner Brothers right there for me. Because that's what it means when you write the future. You bought the business. And so all I needed was to leave. And so I've been broke an extra amount of years really for nothing. It's hurt Sarah's life. It's hurt my life. It's hurt my oldest daughter's life. It's hurt my relationships on intimate levels. The damage is done so bad that I'm now adjusting myself to taking medicine to deal with the trauma. The wherewithal that being forced this extra time here has caused my life. But at the end of it all, it leads to this little piece of writing right here. So I'm hoping for Tom Welling's sake that this is worth it. I'm hoping that this movie is good enough for him that he likes it. So I'm going to record this now, and I'll probably have to read it again, live stream Facebook. No, maybe not. I could just load this up. So here we go. Smallville, the movie. Written by Lady Jennifer, or as my pen name goes, Jennifer Cooley. The beginning. Here we go. Once upon a time in a castle far, far away was a young boy growing up to be a man whose world would be changed by the love and life of two very important people to him. This is that story. Kent, England was beautiful country, rolling hills, green grass, showered with glorious architecture everywhere. Our story begins in the castle known as Leeds. Young Master Kent was growing up well. He had everything life in a castle has to offer, the finest clothes, the finest food, and staff to pamper his every request. On this day, his father had arranged plans to take his son for a drive into the big city, to teach his son about his world of business, for it was his hope and dream that his young son, Johnathan, would grow up to one day follow in his footsteps, and take his place at the head of his father's work. So now we get to Jonathan's father. The car is waiting for us outside, son. Are you ready? Today is a big day for us as father and son. Are you excited to see what I do that affords us the privileged life we have? Johnathan says. Yes, sir. I guess so, sir. Johnathan sort of shrugs his shoulders as he walks in his father's direction, who is now holding the door open for the two of them to leave. He did have to admit he does like those drives through the countryside and into different villages. The young boy then scurried quickly to the car, where the door was open for him to climb into the back. His father climbed in seconds after that, and the door was closed behind them as they settled into their seats. Looking over at his son, he says, I'm taking you somewhere you've never been today, to show you another side of life that you are now old enough to see. 10 years old is quite an impressionable age, and as your father I want you to be given the right impressions about life when you're an adult in the fast-paced, ever-changing world that surrounds us is like. Johnathan says, Okay, father, but I have been into the city before, father. Jonathan's father, well, you've never been where we are going today. We're settled in, driver. Anytime you're ready, Baxter, we can go. Baxter. Right then, sir. Here we go. Baxter starts the car and pulls away from Leeds Castle and drives around the fountain in the driveway, out and down a long, very long road ahead of them. It was indeed a breathtaking sight. Baxter appreciated the ability to drive in and out of on a regular basis as part of his life's working routine. Who wouldn't like his job? Johnathan settled in for the drive into London, which was more than an hour away. He quickly started looking out the window to study the vast, rich, but yet very mundane countryside. It was the same things every day. The ritual of life at Leeds Castle was always the same. Everything so predictable. There might be some convenience to having access to anything you want and being waited on hand and foot, but Johnathan understood it to be unwieldy, or cumbersome rather. Life for him anyway wasn't so productive. He always had these dreams to one day break away, to be free of his family's way of life and etch out a life and adventure of his own. This is where the young boy's depression would kick in, understanding he has many, many years to go before he will reach such a day of freedom and life. Unlike the life he is aware his father wants him to live, that he doesn't dare try and talk to his father about his different visions and viewpoints. But Johnathan understood that one day he would be old enough to make his own choices in life. Till then, all he could do is bide his time and follow his parents' instructions. The car finally stopped outside this big building with beautiful beams and lots of steps to climb. Johnathan turned to his father and said, What is this place, father? Jonathan's father. This is a bank, my boy. It holds money for a lot of people. This is just one of our stops for the day. The door opened and his father climbed out and turned back and gestured for his son to follow. Once outside the car and standing on the sidewalk, the young boy Johnathan Kent immediately noticed something very sad and rather out of place considering that this was a bank they were standing at. There was this thin man, very wrinkly looking, from the thinness of his body. His clothes were very old and raggedy. He had some bags that were sitting beside him on the steps and a really scruffy-looking dirty dog, with the cutest face Johnathan ever seen. Considering he didn't get to see dogs close up at all that often, his mother was allergic to everything, so dogs and cats were not animals allowed in any of the family castles. There was this smell coming from the man and the dog that was unfamiliar to Johnathan and rather unpleasant. To wish not something he wished to encounter often in his life. Jonathan's father said, Johnathan says to his father, Who's that, father? Jonathan's father turned to look at what his son was looking at and turned back to his son and said, Oh, that's just a bum, my son. Vagabond, as it were. Johnathan, what's that? A vagabond. A bum? Johnathan never in his entire life had seen the likes of a person or a pet so out of sorts and bad off in his life. He was confused and very saddened by what he saw. And another thing he started to feel for this man and his dog was sympathy and compassion. He could see they needed love and a hand up in the world, and he looked back up at his father and said, "Why don't we help him, Father? He clearly needs new shoes and some clothes and a jacket, since the cooler weather will be rolling in very shortly, and they could both probably need some food. I can't imagine how hungry they are. I've never had to go without food." Jonathan's father: "And you never will, my son. Come on, let's go. We haven't the time to spare to talk about this man and his circumstances anymore. I can't be responsible for all the poor people in the world, son. I'm sure he will be all right. London offers lots of resources for those kinds of people, and I'm sure he knows where every single one of them is." He grabbed Johnathan by the hand and began to walk up the stairs toward the big, cold-looking bank doors. Johnathan was confused by his father's reaction. He was rather disappointed and couldn't help but continue to look back at the poor man and his dog. As they were walking away, he wanted so desperately to help the two of them. Right then and there, a life-changing experience happened. Young Johnathan knew that he didn't want to grow up to be his father or any of his father's rich friends and business associates who self-absorbed and obnoxious money-making people. It was then that Johnathan remembered something. Early that day, while getting ready for the trip to London, he went to his piggy bank and took some money out for shopping while in the city for the day, wasting no further time as his father pulled them further and further away from the poor man. He took his free hand and reached into his right pocket and shuffled through the big British coins that were in his pocket. With his hand gripped tightly on what he was sure was the right one, he pulled it out of his pocket and looked at it. Smiling at the shiny big $2 coin in his hand, he rubbed his thumb over it quickly and then turned to look over his left shoulder to see how far away the man and his dog were. Once analyzing the distance and the strength of the throw he'd need, he wound his arm up and around like a man giving a pitch in a baseball game. 1, 2, 3. With his arm straight up and hand in the right direction, he let the coin go with a great toss and held his breath while he watched it fly away. About 15 seconds later or so, he could see it land and hear a light ping sound of the coin landing on the ground just a few feet away from the two on the steps behind him. The dog barked as though he understood and was saying thank you. Johnathan thought to himself, but dogs don't speak human. He shook his head clear, and then came a second bark as the poor man got up with a smile on his face after hearing the coin land and looking in the direction of the sound. Once he picked up the coin, he looked at the boy and smiled while waving at him and said the words, "Thank you," as the poor man's dog stood up next to his owner and started wagging his tail and barked for a third time. Jonathan's father, too busy focusing on the climb up all those big stairs, turned to look at his son with a jerk and said, "What was that? What did you just do?" Johnathan was quick to turn to his dad and say, "Nothing." By the time Jonathan's dad turned around to look at the poor man with the dog, the man and his dog were walking away. Inside Jonathan's head was a boy convinced that there must be a God, some other life out there in outer space somewhere that caused the dog to bark as though he understood what money in Jonathan's gesture meant. The feeling of pride and joy that swelled up inside Johnathan as his father continued to drag him forward to this big British bank was so elating and wonderful he actually felt for a moment like he was walking on clouds. This feeling, he thought to himself, with a release of a deep, satisfied breath and smile on his face, is one that he's decided he wants to know for the rest of his life. And so on that day he made the vow that he would do what he asked to find a place in his life as he grows that will allow him to feel these kinds of moments of joy again and again, making him the man he was too young still to understand that he longed to be, but was sure one day he'd grow to be. That's the journey that now leads us to the 21st century, in the beautiful country home, in a small town simply known as Smallville. Look, I used the pause button. I didn't make a second one. So that's done. I didn't do a perfect reading. That was my first time reading it. And I probably noticed a little typo I need to fix in one of the sentences. But that's good enough for today for the point of saying, yes, there's a Smallville movie or story. I don't know how big the story is going to get, and I just know that I'm not going to have to be the writer that rips it apart after I'm finished putting all the juice into it, all the meat, and have to rip it down to its skeleton so that we have the right size screenplay for the right size movie. We're looking at 2.5 hours or something, less commercials. I want to go back to the way things used to be, the way it should still be. I don't want paid people to watch commercials. That's not what this is about. Anyways, that's it. I'm done. Peace out. I'm going to unload this, and hope you guys understood me. Hope you didn't get lost, and hope you look forward to more if I choose to read more. But that was the opening that I was hoping would be gripping enough that Tom's like, how does the rest of it go? You can't just leave us hanging like that. What's next? Well, come find me. Answer messages that you find that are for you, that you can find. And we'll find out what happens after we talk. You can phone my number. I've posted it 1,000 places everywhere. And if you were watching this and you know how to move this forward to the next person, to the next person, next person of the people that I need to go to England with, go ahead and pass this video on. Superwoman signing out. Now TV Canada, Ottawa, where I am waiting surgery and want to have people with me to support me through this tough time, because 227 staples in the stomach is not going to be easy to recover from. It's not going to happen overnight. I will not be jumping out of bed or eating well for like months. But I'm looking forward to the recovery, getting myself back to health and being able to be in a Steve Martin movie, maybe a Baker's Dozen, and have a good time.